The Senate will now come to order. If you're still getting food, don't worry. Sorry. Our first order of business is roll call. The Clerk of Senate will now take roll.
Hello everyone, if you're here as a proxy today, please say proxy when you hear the name of your senator. Nadia Alfaraje. Here. Crystal Alvarez. Kwamina Awali.
Here.
Fantasy Bias.
Here.
Catalina Carvajal.
Here.
Holly Carvine.
Here.
Antonio Cardenas.
Here.
Justin Douse.
Here.
Alana De La Torre.
Here.
Maya De La Torre.
Here.
Max Donahue.
Proxy.
Andrew DeHovic.
Here.
Eliza Guerrero.
Here.
Valerie Jimenez.
Proxy.
Yashvi Kawadi.
Here.
Jesse Magana.
Here.
Mary Logan Miskey.
Here.
Simon Mizrahi.
Here.
Chidi Okaru.
Here.
Rhonda Papp. Here. Anaya Pendleton.
Here.
Maya Ramirez.
Here.
Brianna Rivas.
Here.
Andrew Schneider. Angela Tharp.
Here.
Anayeli Villegas Ferreira.
Here.
Vida Pasugian.
Here.
Daniela Walter.
Here.
Justice Soto.
Here.
Let the record reflect that quorum is met. Our second order of business is the approval of the agenda. I move to amend the agenda to move line item D to line item B, and then switch line item C and E. For further clarification, so the order would be the parking presentation, new student boards, the library presentation, the college leadership presentation, and then the vote on the financial allocation.
Second.
So there's a motion on the floor to amend the agenda. Does anyone need further clarification of what the amendment is?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, so the order again would be presentation of the parking appeals, the approval of new and re-registering student warrants, the library presentation on the resources and services, the college leadership presentation, and then the vote on the reallocation. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Our third order of business is the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from last week.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to approve the minutes of last week's Senate. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Our next item on the agenda is a report from the speaker. I just wanted to congratulate you all as a body for last night's forum. I would say it was pretty successful just because we did get to hear a lot of different student issues, student concerns, and they actually got to get some of those answered by either some of us or administrators who were also present there. So really wanted to thank you all for being there. If you weren't able to make it, I think this body represented us well, and we're looking forward to what we create out of what we heard last night. So thank you all. Secondly, I just wanted to see by a show of hands who would be actually interested and committed to use business cards as senators or in whatever position you may be. Okay. This has been a discussion that one of your senators has actually brought up since the very beginning, but we weren't sure how many of y'all would be interested. And there had also been previous years who had invested in business cards, but they actually ended up in like the closet. So we just wanted to make sure that you all are committed to using this if this is really something you think will benefit your constituency. So if there's any further steps, which probably there will be, we will be keeping you updated on that. Are there any questions? Cool. Next item on the agenda are reports from committee chairs, and we can start with Rhonda.
Hello. 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 So as I said last night at the forum, I'm working on a program called Aussie, OZZI, where it's a Tupperware program. I'm working currently with like my committee in student life as well as other students in other like places on campus. So if you guys are interested, please let me know. Either text me or email me. You don't have to be like completely into it yet, but like you want to be like kept like updated, like oh we're having a meeting like tonight. You want to show up and like show your ideas or things like that. Please let me know, and I can like put you on that list, and we can go from there.
Hi everyone. I hope you're having a good Thursday. Just wanted to say that we had the mental health day check-ins and they went very well. So that was this past week. So thank you ASG for putting it on the website and advertising that. Also working on like an e-cigarette campaign with the students in the center. So if you guys are interested in that, I just want to know more information about that to me. And then yeah, just the forum went well. It was good to hear people's feedback. So just talk to me if you guys have any questions or concerns. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Hi everyone, I'm Fantasy and I'm with a chair of the Student Board Committee. Next week on Tuesday, November 19th, we have our Student Org Mixer. Speaking of feedback, if you are a student leader or if you want to be involved in anything student org related, it's basically a night of like socializing, eating food that we provide, and also just like giving us feedback on how student orgs can be better, how you can collaborate, network, develop, and also even where we may or may not have like student activities and involvement being like partnered with us, so that they can answer your questions around like EBRs, like funding requests, how to plan events, different things like that. So, or if you are just looking to create a new student org, it's a great opportunity to go and connect with other people and student leaders. So please mark that on your calendar. We have flyers, so we'll be sending those out, passing those out, and posting it hopefully on the ASG Instagram.
All right, hello everyone. So just a quick update. We're still in the process of trying to get our survey together. So regardless of whether or not we are able to release the survey by Tuesday, we'll still be having the event. And I feel like it will probably be just like a meet and greet event with the ID&E committee, and then I know that the academics committee also, no, okay, so just the ID&E committee. And so I'll keep you updated on that, and I'll send out any other information as it comes to us. We have a meeting tomorrow with folks about the survey so that we can kind of figure out what next steps are. Number two is I wanted to kind of gauge, I know that we brought it up a couple times in Senate about the subgroup that would be formed under ID&E committee. And I know I've already spoken to someone who is interested in like leading the group possibly. And so I wanted to gather names of folks who are actually interested in being a part of the subgroup that are from Senate. So if it's okay, if you're not okay with raising your hand, then you can email me. But if right now you're for sure that you want to be on this subgroup, can you please raise your hand so I can write your name down? Sorry, the subgroup is going to be formed to address not only the hate crime, but further policy around hate crime actions, and then in a more broader sense as well, not just specifically the one. Sorry, you can raise your hand now. My bad.
Do you want to tell your name?
No, you're good. I remember
Oh.
names. I have a good one. Did I miss? Okay, awesome. And then the last thing that I'll mention is that one of the things that we're going to be talking about in either the subgroup or within the larger committee as a whole, if anyone is interested, I've been communicating with folks from the University of St. Thomas, which is sort of kind of our sister school, so their current president used to be our provost. And one of the things that happened on their campus last year was a hate crime, more and specifically race. I know I mentioned this yesterday at the forum as well, but if you weren't there, update. And so they, after hate crime, released kind of like a long-term and short-term plan in regards of like what they would do when it came to addressing the hate crime. So one of them was they literally canceled the whole day of classes and they had a campus-wide meeting. And the campus met as an entirety. They had conversations in the classroom where professors were required that day in their classes or the next day in their classes to have culturally sensitive conversations. And then they launched an anti-hate crime in the campaign, an anti-hate crime campaign. And so that's just a couple of the things that they did to give you kind of an idea. So I'll be kind of gathering all that information, putting it together, and then figuring out how it can be best addressed in the context of your team. If you have any questions, please email me, text me, whatever you feel comfortable with. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Maya, Student Life Committee Chair. My only update is that the grocery trams are running this Sunday, November 17th, from 12:30 to 4. Please tell everyone you know, especially first years. Also, if somebody is an RA in a first year place, please tell me because I cannot put flyers in these places because I can't get in. So please help me with that. It's never too late to let them know because we all know how it was being a freshman and not having these resources. But that's about it.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone, I'm Daniela, I'm the Academic Committee Chair. So a few updates. First, the academic grant applications have been out for the last few weeks and the deadline to submit them is tonight at 5 p.m. And so me and Grayson have been working closely together to get together the research grant committee. So we will all be meeting next Thursday to review all the applications, and the research grant committee consists of Grayson, myself, the academic committee, and we've been working together to also get some professors on board. And so we will all be going over the applications next Thursday and reviewing them and setting out some final decisions shortly after. And then Quam actually is going to send out the rest of the updates for the academic committee.
All right, hi, this is on. Okay. After our meeting, we also decided that we would try and plan ahead for spring academic grants, if I'm correct. Basically, one of our biggest issues was we were thinking about how many students knew about these grants or knew like how to access them. So we were thinking of reaching out to departments and having teachers pass them out like the daily announcements. We also are going to finalize what we're going to be printing on these like, study space location maps, and we're working with Creative Zone to get those out. And after our meeting, we also are going to start collaborating with the library to figure out like how much funding they need for their 24/7 period, as well as the engineering school, correct, for the funds? Let me know if I'm missing anything.
Hello. How's it going, y'all? Drew, Chair of Athletics. So this Friday, we got our women's basketball game against BYU at 7 p.m. It's a pretty big game for them, so it'd be nice if y'all come out. Oh, volleyball as well. If there's any game to go to, it's going to be the San Diego State game, men's basketball, on the 20th, 8 p.m. There's going to be some free food. I encourage all of y'all to go. And State is our biggest rival. It'd be nice to have some school spirit. Yeah. That's it. Oh, it's women's volleyball. I'm sorry, not basketball.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda are reports from ASG Executive Board, and we can start with Maria.
Hi everyone, I just have, I think, 3 quick updates. The first thing is, I don't know if y'all remember or not, but Kai Snyder came and gave a presentation on parking earlier this year. And Fantasy and I are actually sitting in on the parking and mobility task force meeting that's happening in 2 weeks. So if there's any concerns or anything like that that you would like us to bring up, please let me know, and or Fantasy, I'm sure. Aside from that, I wanted to let you all know, after the meeting that we had about the hate crime, Dr. Avery actually took note as to what you all and other students brought up and has been working with Chief Miyashiro to change certain things on the website to make it, to not give people an excuse of not being grown up, like not growing up in a well-knowledged area of diversity, instead changing that definition and kind of working with him. So I wanted to let you all know that that's like a win for us. She heard us and she's working with Chief Miyashiro to get that fixed. And I'm sure she would be more than happy to hear from you all in ways that you all could help with that. Another thing is I wanted to let you all know, as I mentioned last week, I've been meeting with Eleanor, Dr. Mayfu, and another professor and students to kind of see what their action plans would be and what we want to create out of this response. So we're having a meeting this Friday at 2 p.m. to talk about it, and we're kind of inviting people who are like-minded and might want to talk to us about this. One of the goals that we're having is potentially applying for the strategic initiatives funding that is given every year. It could be a really good way for us to be able to create educational dialogue and conversations around all of this. So if you're interested, please let me know. And then lastly, I kind of wanted to take a moment to be very transparent with you all, because I recognize I had talked to a few of you about certain things that I would follow up on and things like that, and I know I haven't been the best at doing it. I've been very transparent with my exec team, with the rest of the exec team, and so I want to be very honest with you all. I have been dealing with some not so great health issues for the past now almost 3 weeks. It's really kind of stops me from being able to be a fully functioning person. And so I've been late on my emails. I haven't been the best at following up on certain things. And so I really do apologize for that. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I'm trying to be very transparent with you all as to where I am and to maybe why I haven't responded in a timely manner. But I'm trying my hardest to stay on top of it and to make sure that what you all come to me for is responded with and I actually follow through. So please just bear with me, but I wanted to be very honest with y'all as to where I am. And hopefully this is gonna get all cleared out soon, but I just wanted to be honest.
Hi everybody. I want to talk a couple of things about updates from University Senate. One, last week they passed a resolution in response to hate crime. That resolution, as you can see, was possibly shared with you, sent to the whole campus-wide community, as well as Carl added it to the email. Additionally, they will be making an ad hoc committee in response to the crime and kind of like taking next steps, and that's something that I'm hoping to collaborate with. Kind of Jesse's going to help out with that, and so all of you who were interested, thank you for that. Additionally, I would like to welcome Dr. Ivanich here, who is the chair of the University Senate. She's in attendance, so thank you for being here. Yes, that is all. Thank you.
I just want to say that, well, as you see the agenda, we're going to talk about my announcements. So, other than that, it's really, I've sent out an email to exec and like to be collecting reports. So, by the last 2 Senate meetings, we're going to be presenting like budget allocations for next semester. So just keep that in the back of your head, but not like too far back.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to share a TPB event that's happening tomorrow. It's called Think Local. It's happening outside the SLE from 3 to 5:30. It's going to be a really culturally engaging event. The intention behind it was we're partnering with our local anchor institutions, so Logan Heights, and the Vista. We are bringing food vendors from the initiative, the food vendor initiative that's happening with the Mulvaney Center, as well as bringing resources from those communities to come and talk about their
fairs they have, their swap meets and other things that happen in their communities. So again, that's from 3 to 5:30 tomorrow, right before the Friendsgiving that we're having. So I would highly encourage you all to be there, at least stop by, say hi, and maybe enjoy some food. There's going to be some student performers as well as performers from the community. So thanks, guys.
Hello all, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking your picture last week with Kenny. If you had a proxy or you were absent or couldn't get your photo taken, please let me know or get in contact with Kenny so you can get your photo taken because those will be uploaded to the website. That is all.
Hello everyone. So as ASG members know, tomorrow is our Friendsgiving gathering. Please come with an empty stomach. We have a lot of food and I look forward to bonding with all of you. And on another note, it's not too late to contact me to talk about your transfer experience. I sit on the ad hoc committee for a transfer policy and I would really like to hear your input and your experience before I meet with faculty.
Thank you all so much. Oh, sorry. I thought I saw your hand up. All right. Our next item on the agenda is a presentation on parking reappeals by parking services. As you all may know, we will have traffic court up until the end of this semester where you all have to participate or can participate in at least one. And so they're really here to show us about traffic court, the process, how business is ran in those meetings, and kind of what your role is in those meetings as well. So you can.
Hi, my name is Andrew Vanderhook. I am actually the parking operations supervisor here. So with reappeals, we greatly appreciate you guys' help with this, making a fair process for all students wanting to reappeal their citations when they feel a citation was issued to them incorrectly or unjustly. Just kind of some statistics with last year and this year. So last fall, you guys heard 17 reappeals over 5 different days. In the spring, you guys heard 23 reappeals over 5 different dates as well. So far this semester, we have only heard 6 reappeals on one day, but we have 4 scheduled for December 3rd, and we have 8 more pending since we are still waiting on some additional dates to provide these people the opportunity to be heard. With the reappeal process, it's a committee of at least 3 people from associated students. We try and provide all the information on the citation ahead of time, which includes the violation, their original appeal, our decision on that appeal, along with any history they may have had, such as prior citations, whether they are for the same violation, different violation, when those citations were issued as well to help you make a decision with that. On the reappeal date, we are present to answer any questions you have and also to go over it as well with you. You guys then have the person filing the reappeal come in. They're able to provide any information they want to you guys, whether it's the same thing that they said in the original appeal, any new information, documents to plead their case with you guys. The person then steps out of the room. You guys discuss amongst yourselves with how the decision you want to make with the citation. You can either uphold the citation, leaving it as it is. You can reduce the citation by any amount. So you can reduce it from $1 by $1 or all the way down to a warning if you want. The exceptions with that is 1, ADA violations. Your bylaws do not allow you to reduce those. You do have to uphold ADA violations. And then fire lane violations, your bylaws also only allow you to reduce those by half. That is because of state and federal laws that apply with those violations. Once you guys come to an agreement on your decision, you guys have the person come back in, you let them know the decision, and then the key thing is also the reasoning behind that decision. If they just hear a decision, a lot of times they like to argue with that. They need to know the decision. But when you guys are making that decision, you guys also will be able to have to justify that as well. So that's a key thing when you guys are making that decision and reviewing everything, is to make sure that you are being fair with it. It's something that you would, a standard you would expect all other students to uphold as well with it, because a lot of times the decisions you guys make, we look at that in our enforcement practices and in the original appeal as well. For example, something that's come from past reappeals is signage. Before, we didn't always take pictures of all the signage that was in the area. Now we do at the time of the violation. While some of the signage is permanent, we still take pictures of it now, so we can show that to you guys so you see what was there at that time. So, do you guys have any questions regarding the process or expectations?
Does the process have to happen before 5 p.m. Monday through Friday?
No, the schedule of the appeals is set by you guys. So we work with your guys' schedule. That's one reason why we're still waiting on the dates of upcoming. We do try and get the dates from you guys as far in advance as we can, so students can adjust their schedule. We recommend that some of the dates are during dead hours, which accommodates a lot of students. But we do also try and have some of the hours later for evening students. So the one on December 3rd, that was actually from 5 to 7. Those were heard, but it's up to you guys to decide when these are going to be. Just make sure the date and times are something reasonable for all students where they would be able to get one of those times.
Sorry, y'all, I asked if the process had to be done before 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? So, well, thank you very much for your time, and we do appreciate your guys' assistance with the repeals and the great work you guys do.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of new and re-registering student orgs.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, on my mistake, there were no slides made. However, there are 3 student organizations. 2 of them are re-registering, and 1 of them is new. So I'll just break them off into that. And we'll start with the re-registering student orgs first. The first one is Theta Tau. It is the engineering fraternity on campus. It is the sole engineering fraternity, and they have events where it's not excluded to just any specific engineering. It's all school, all majors in STEM, including computer science and physics and math. And they have a formal rush process, and they pretty much do normal functions just like any other fraternity. And then the second re-registering student organization is American Medical Student Association, or AMSA. Like Theta Tau, they are not secluded to any particular pre-med major. If you're pre-med, pre-dental, pre-nursing, they're open to all, and they primarily focus on pre-MCAT studying. So they'll host study sessions for the MCAT. They try to get students in that field volunteer experience just so that they kind of have that grounded, so they can volunteer at scripts or whatever before they graduate and before they move on to take the MCAT. So again, those 2 re-registering is Theta Tau and American Medical Student Association.
Are there any questions about those?
I think they're all 3 of them are re-registering, so if you want to also include the last one.
Oh, really? Okay. So, I think Bullpit, okay, so yes, they're all re-registering. So the third one is Bullpit. I was under the impression they're new because there hasn't been a Bullpit student organization on campus, but Bullpit is the Bullpit. It is primarily the student section on campus. They work with Dr. Harris to just increase school spirit and identity all across USD. So that includes social gatherings on campus, honestly, at every single sporting event. They don't distinguish specifically as to which ones. They go to every single sporting event, whether it's volleyball, cross country, swimming, basketball, you name it. And they do pre-game functions, participation. So if you've been to any of the basketball or volleyball games, then you know of football. So that is the next organization that needs to be put.
Are there any?
Oh, I move to approve all re-registering boards.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to. There's a motion on the floor to reapprove these Oh my God. There's a motion on the floor to approve the re-registering student organizations. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Thanks, Justin. All right. Next item on the agenda is a presentation on access to library resources and services by our Access Services and Outreach Librarian, Christopher Markham.
Hi. Thank you all for having me today. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for the invitation. I have about 15 minutes. Obviously, the library, let me see if I can get this right. Step back a little bit. You all can hear me okay now? Am I talking into the mic? Yeah. Obviously, the library provides access to all kinds of scholarly resources to support the teaching and the research and the scholarship of everyone at USD. And we also provide a lot of different services to do that as well, to that end. For today, I'm actually just going to focus on, in the 15 minutes that I have, the newspapers in terms of the academic resources that we provide access to, specifically newspapers. So the first thing I want to do is, I'll do three things. Sort of distinguish between the type of access that Copley provides for research purposes, as distinct from the type of access you might get directly through the publisher's website. The second thing I'll do is then actually go to our website, demonstrate for you all, like, how do you get to these newspapers? What does it look like? What are some of the functionality that the platform we provide access to, allows, and why is it great for research, in terms of accessing newspapers through us for research purposes. And then third, whatever time's left, I'll be glad to take any questions that you all might have about that. So just really quickly, the type of access that Copley Library provides is through a platform called ProQuest. And you can browse it, you can look at the current newspaper, you can see all the articles in today's newspaper, and I'll show you that. But the platform is really designed for research. It's designed to maximize searching. It's really beneficial to the researcher and a scholar who wants to use a newspaper for research purposes, right? They could search, in the case of something like the New York Times, all the way back to 1851, right? That's distinct from the kind of access that you might get from like a personal subscription directly to the website, which is really designed for personal use. It's ideal for personal use. Not to say you couldn't use that for research, but it's ideal for personal use in that, you see the images, you see the pictures, you can browse easily, it's integrated with social media, those kinds of things, right? So that's kind of the key distinction between the type of personal subscription you might get directly through a website versus, which is great for personal use, but not so great for research, versus the type of access that we provide at Copley, which is really designed for scholarship, teaching, and research. So that's the first thing. The second thing is actually, let's just go to our website. If I can navigate here. I don't know if we have a tab open yet. I'll just USD calculator and actually kind of show you what this looks like. There are many different access points from our website, different ways that you could get to any of the newspapers that we provide access to. You could do a search directly here from our catalog. You can click on databases and look at a database like the New York Times Historical Archive, which would allow you to search the New York Times all the way back to 1851. You can search a title by journal. When you do it by the catalog, you'll see all the records. So you might see that we have microfilm access to the New York Times dating back to 1851, or you can see that we have a current print issue of that, today's paper in print at the library for you to look at. What I want to do right now really quickly is just show you a guide that we've created to make it a little bit easier for students, a kind of a one-stop shop to see what we provide access to. So when you're looking under the tab of Research Help, we have all kinds of guides on various subjects to help students do research on all kinds of different topics. We've created a guide just to easily direct you to all our newspapers. So if I just do a search there, it'll come right up. There's a lot of different ways to get to this, but this is what it looks like. And you can see we have these different papers, and if you scroll down, you can see ways to access these through different databases. Depending on the database, you'll have different ranges of access. You'll have different types of functionality for how you want to use that newspaper source. So, whether you want to browse it from a specific date, you might choose a different database versus you want to do really specific searches on, say, I want to look for all the blog posts. So it kind of depends on what your actual research need is in terms of the type of database that you might use to access these. But if we're just looking at the individual newspapers, we come here, New York Times. Now, what you can see here from this platform is, first of all, you notice that you can actually look at the latest issue, today's paper right now. You can scroll down, you can browse different issues either by year, the most recent ones, like if we click on 2019, then we can look at 2019, we can look at November, and so on. And we can also just search this publication. And if we search this publication, what it's going to show us in this particular database, because we're not in the historical version, is all the content from 1980 all the way up till today. If we did keyword searches, looking for articles that were relevant for the project we were working on, and this is how we might go about, one way we might go about it. So you can already start to see just from this initial sort of landing page that, that this really is geared towards doing research and doing searches. But you can also browse, right? You can click on November and see all the issues, pick an issue, and look at the content. So let's just say today's newspaper, New York Times. We click on it right here. Here's all the articles from today's paper. And we can see all these, just scroll down, see a title that gets our attention, click on it, and read that article. You can also see that because this is for research, there's different things that you can do here. If we click on, let's say this article is of interest. Now we have the article here. We can do some different things. We could create a citation for it, right? Maybe we're building a bibliography. We know we want to use this article, and we're using APA or depending on our format, right? So that's a very handy tool. We could print it out. We can email it to anyone who's an affiliate of USD that we might want to share it with. We can save it, so we can create an account within ProQuest and save articles and build bibliographies within this platform. We could scroll down and look at the subject terms associated with this article and get new search results based on these. Now, this is going to draw content not just from the New York Times, but from everything that's in this platform. We could translate this into a different language maybe if we wanted to. So we could read this article is now in English. We could select English from English to another language. And there's quite a list. Let's see. So you can see these are the different languages that this article can be translated into. So if English weren't your first language or you wanted to read it in another language, very handy tool when you're doing scholarly work. So this kind of just to reiterate, this is a real basic look at what you're accessing when you're accessing the New York Times through us. You could look at the current issue, you could look at the current today's paper, but it has all these tools and functionality that I've barely even touched on to help you as a researcher and a scholar, right? Which is very distinct from the kind of access that you might find directly on the publisher's website, which isn't really meant for that. Now, as I mentioned, we have this guide, which is handy, but most people probably aren't going to come to this guide just to access these newspapers, right? So if you're at our homepage, as I mentioned, you might try doing a search from the catalog. You might choose a database. So let's just say New York Times. And you're going to get a lot of records, right? And you want to limit them to the location. This is what Copley Library provides. So we click that. That limits them a little bit more. The first one you see here, this is the print that we provide. So I want the print newspaper. I can walk into Copley, see that today, today's version, up to a week. Here's some access points to a database called U.S. Major Dailies. U.S. Major Dailies has a ton of U.S. major daily newspapers in it, including the New York Times. So you can access it through this database, and then you have the ability to search across hundreds, maybe even thousands, I'm not sure, U.S. daily newspapers. So that's one way to access it that way. And when you're in that database, you can navigate specifically to the publication you want. So let's say you want to search just Detroit Free Press. You locate that and search that way, just the way we were just searching New York Times, right? So that's another way. We have it on microfilm going way back. So if you want to see, a microfilm version of an article from 1851, you could do that. But we also have a database called New York Times Historical Archives in the case of New York Times. That would be your best bet for locating articles that go way back, past 1980, in other words. So I guess, and then also when you're searching our catalog, you can see what other holdings they might have at the Legal Research Center and some other things like that. And there's a whole lot of different ways to access it, as I mentioned, but this is just to give you a sense of how you might get access to the newspapers that we provide, let you know that we have this guide that sort of puts it in this format for you so you can see the different databases and ways to access these papers and what we provide. And also just to highlight that there's librarians at Copley all the time. We have a reference service. You see this little Ask a Librarian that pops up. We have people on call. We have subject specialists who specialize in topics that you might be interested in. You can always reach out to us and find a librarian that can help you utilize all our resources and services. So if you're unsure about how to get access to a particular newspaper or anything else, you can just reach out to us. There's a lot of different ways to do that from our homepage. The quickest spot on our homepage is research help, right? If you click Ask a Librarian, you can text us, you can call us, you can send us an email. You can look at our research guides to get insight into how to start on a topic, or you can just reach out to a specific subject specialist. Like if you're an anthropology major and you need help with an anthropology project, reach out to the anthropology librarian. If anybody has any questions, whatever time we have left, whether it's about newspapers or something else, I'm happy to answer.
With the Wall Street Journal, oh, sorry.
Would the Wall Street Journal be something that you can find in that database?
Yes. So it would function very much like the little demo I just did of the New York Times. It's very much the same, right? So Wall Street Journal, it'll look pretty much identical, right? And here's the current issue, where you can scroll down, just like we did with New York Times. Same platform.
Thank you.
Could I be able to access all of this on my computer, or do I have to be at the library?
You don't have to be at the library. You can access it on your phone. The site is fairly mobile friendly. Our website is really mobile friendly. The different platforms are a little bit less so. They're provided by different vendors. But if you have an internet connection and a device, you can get here. All you need is your USD1 username and password.
Hi. I'm just wondering how much the library wants in funding for the 24/7 finals period, because I heard you guys wanted
Hey,
a low.
I've got an email from you.
From me?
You're on my agenda today.
Okay.
I'll be emailing you later with that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes. Perfectly fine, thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say this has become a great tradition at USD. Students love it. And you guys have been providing support for finals at the library for 7 or 8 years now. And I just think it's a great tradition. And you guys do so much, no question. But this is one of those things that the library and the students, they just love it. Thank you.
You said a couple times that this is for research and not for personal use. Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, that's somewhat subjective, right? So personal use, it's not to say that you can't look at today's newspaper for personal reasons, right? If you want to see the articles from today's New York Times, you can do that on our platform. When I talk about personal use, I'm more sort of thinking about the notion of a personal subscription where it's integrated into social media. You can, when you log into your account, you can customize it a little bit to your, whether it be your location or things you like to read or that kind of thing. It's the access to the publisher's website is like really well suited to click on a particular, like I want to just read the sports section, boom, I click that. So it's not to say that our platform doesn't serve personal needs. It definitely does. It's just not designed to do that in the same way that the publisher's access to the website is.
What? Or Daniela? And then did you say that this database doesn't include like pie charts or photos or graphs that may facilitate the user's understanding of what the article is saying?
It does not contain images, for sure. So if it happens to be an image of something like that, it wouldn't be there. If you knew of an image or something like that, graph that's in a particular article that you needed, the library can facilitate access to that through something called interlibrary loan. So you can reach out and tell us, I need this image or I need this thing, and we can try to get that for you that way.
A follow up. So if you were on
your
your
allotted time for this discussion, if you would like to make a motion to ask your question.
I make a motion to extend the time by 2 minutes.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to extend this time for 2 minutes. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes.
So just to follow up, if you were on your phone and accessing the article, you wouldn't be able to see any of the images or graphs, or you wouldn't know that they were available on the database itself.
Through our platform, you will see none of the images.
Thank you.
Mayor Logan?
Do you personally think that this is the easiest way students can go about getting the resources that they needed, and more just like getting the news outlets needed?
Again, it would depend on the type of use that you're looking for. For what we support, which is the research and scholarship, this is definitely the ideal platform and the easiest way to facilitate research and scholarship, no doubt.
Justin?
Thank you for presenting. This is just a clarification on a statement that I thought that you said when you were showing us how to access this. You mentioned that there are different links that provide different types of access and functions to articles. Does that mean that some links on the process will have some articles and other links will not have? Like there's not one single link that has every single article for a distinguished newspaper?
There's kind of two parts to that. So all the content is there. So let's say you access it through ProQuest. Let's take the New York Times as an example. You access it through ProQuest. That's going to be 1980 to the present, right up to the current day. If you go to the historical archives, which is a database, then you're going to get it 1851 right up to the present. So there is a distinction there. So that in the one access point, you're getting 1980 to the present, in the other, you're getting 1851 to the present. But in terms of what you're getting, if you're just looking for the current stuff, it's all there. There's no distinction. The other part of it is, depending on the place you go, you might have some different functionality. So there's a database called Lexis Uni, and it offers access to a lot of different content that newspapers provide. For example, all the blog posts that New York Times does would be in that database. So, and it functions very differently. It doesn't really allow for browsing, for example. So one of the things that people like to do when they're using a newspaper for personal use is browse the articles in today's newspaper. Lexis Uni doesn't make that really easy to do, but it does make it really easy to say find legal cases if that's what your interest is. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, but that's kind of what I was trying to address there.
Thank you. We've reached our allotted time for this discussion. Please feel free to make a motion if you feel need to do something.
Are there any more questions for Chris?
Thank you again for having me, and thank you all for everything that you do for USD. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is a discussion on the college readership program. One of your senators had requested to add this to the agenda, and so Simon, did you want to facilitate the discussion?
Yeah, I requested some time, but I'm going to be seeing that to one of my constituents who's right over here.
Point of order, you can't see time. So you would have to make it interpretive.
Sorry, I believe it might have been a clarification misunderstanding. When we were emailing, it sounded like you would discuss and you would use some of the time for your constituents, and that's why I said that would be appropriate. I didn't know you were allocating all of your time to one of your constituents. So I don't know if you feel comfortable representing your constituents during this time, because you are the only one who can really use the time. Or if you wanted to open it up for a greater discussion.
Are we able to look at the bylaws to verify the constitutionality of that?
Okay, let's take a...
I move to take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to take a 5-minute recess. Haven't been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Recess is just taking a break so we can handle this and you all can, I don't know, do something. All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. We will meet back all sitting down at 1:20.
I'm like, one day, I know, I have to
What about the team now?
Hey, I gotta keep the spice going with this meeting. Girl, I'm the expert.
That's my
This is gonna be good for you, like later on in Tara is mad at me that I lied.
Because I wanted to laugh.
It's gonna be good for you, like in a meeting, you're gonna have someone like me and you know how to stay help tomorrow. That's my best gift.
Wow. I said, oh, well, I got my Christmas party. My mom asked when I was like one, she was like, and then when I was a baby, I was my ear, like I would pass, and I was so my earrings came from like one time when I was younger, I was wearing my ears were
I know. Oh, whoa, sorry. Y'all can just start taking your seats. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
How many times do you do this?
Did you want to explain all of it, or did you want me to?
So it's not in the bylaws, it's according to Robert's Rules of Order, because we don't have this explicitly stated in our bylaws or constitution. But according to Robert's Rules of Order, we don't have the specific document, it's a lot to find, we don't have the specific line in Robert's Rules. But we get this from Robert's Rules, and it was also in the quiz that you all took at the beginning or in the summer. And it specifically states you cannot cede your time to someone or yield your time to someone, especially someone in the public. So, there you go.
How did you wanna present?
Point of clarification, it says speech limits in debates. Does this count as a debate?
So a discussion.
A discussion and technically a line item on our agenda is counted as debate, just because it is time for you all as senators to debate, which is discuss. So yeah, that's how it is interpreted.
I can share the time with my constituent. Is that following Robert's rules?
Teamwork.
So a point of clarification, with Robert's rules, the only people allowed to speak in this moment are the people in the actual Senate. The only way that this could work is you could do a majority vote to allow the public to be a part of the discussion, but that's a whole motion that has to happen. The public cannot be a part of this discussion until it's voted upon.
Justin?
I'm just curious as to what the arrangement that was handled, like what the specific arrangement was in your email correspondence between Simon in regards to him sharing a partial amount of the time with his constituency, just so that could be clarified to the body.
Yeah.
So I received an email asking to allot time for a discussion on the college leadership program, and if you could make a presentation. So I said yes, because I think we would all benefit from a discussion about this topic. So we went back and forth about, slides and all of that, and then I received an email clarifying about having his constituents speak during that time, or that's how I interpreted to read. And so I said yes with the kind of like understanding that Simon would lead a presentation and a discussion with all of us present, which is when he could use his, I saw no problem in him sharing the time for his constituents to say something about the topic.
During the discussion?
So as per that arrangement, but then now with the new information that we've been presented according to Robert's rules, would he still be allowed to do that in your previous arrangement via email?
Yes, if you are presenting, if it would be something like
like in the last presentation of I think correct me if I'm wrong, but are you saying as in the last presentation that the man from the library gave, there was questions asked from the public? I think that's what you were referring to in terms of the circumstance when somebody from the public asks a question within a discussion here.
Not necessarily taking up the floor to address the body. Daniela?
I moved to allot 3 minutes of Simon's designated 10 minutes to allow a member of the public to speak.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to allot 3 of the 10 minutes of discussion towards one of our constituents. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Point of order. But you have to vote to allow the public to speak first, and then I believe you would have to allot that specific time to Simon's constituent. So.
So y'all gotta fail this.
Yes, the motion doesn't go through.
Chitty?
So for the allowing public to speak during the time, would it be for all of the items? Would it be for all of the items on the new business, or would it just be for the discussion?
It would just be for the discussion. Justin?
I move to allow the public to speak during this discussion.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to allow the public to speak during this allotted time for discussion on the college leadership program. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to allow 3 minutes of Simon's designated 10 minutes to discuss finance committee discussion of college readership program. Sorry.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to allow 3 minutes for one of our constituents to speak during the 10 minutes allotted. Is there any further discussion? Val?
Is it only limited to one person, or is it for everyone?
We will put, just to be fair, a limit on everyone. If anybody else from the public wanted to contribute, I guess everyone would receive a 3-minute limit. Simon?
Would that have to be a separate motion? Since it's not my constituent speaking, the constituent was specifically, the motion that we made was specifically for the 3 minutes for my constituent.
Okay, we'll just vote on your one constituents. One constituent, if you all wanted to limit that to everyone else, then we can vote on that after. So is there any further discussion? Just for clarification, the motion on the floor is to allow Simon's specific constituent 3 minutes of his time. All right, all those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Simon, did you want to use your time now?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it on to my constituent.
I'm good back here. 3 minutes is super quick, so I will go super quickly. I would like to start off by saying 2 quick things. Closer? Okay. Wow, that feels really close to my mouth. Okay. I'd like to start off with saying 2 quick things. The first thing was that there has been no alternative proposed for the funds from the college readership program. Secondly, I'd like to address a concern that has been sort of going around the Senate about the bias of the Wall Street Journal. I'm not an expert on bias, but there is plentiful research on the internet saying that the Wall Street Journal is one of the most unbiased, if not the most unbiased, major publication in this country. And I've got a little statement. I'd like to continue by asking you guys a rhetorical question. Who knows what nationalism is? Nationalism is the identification with one's own nation and support for its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations, especially to the exclusion or detriment. Nationalism has been at the roots of some of the worst atrocities committed by humans in the modern era. What we today are talking about in this room is not nationalism. However, there is an attempt to make this fight between students of different colleges, or what appears to be pseudo-nations. I have heard the argument that the CRP only benefits students in the business school. This argument is categorically false. Regardless of major, students benefit from being globally aware. Journalism itself is an art. Furthermore, our designation as a Changemaker campus is something that we should all be contributing to. I ask you, how are we supposed to enact change without being aware of what is going on around us? The pitting of colleges in here against each other is divisive, exclusionary, and detrimental to the student population. Before you make a decision thinking that the business school is the only one who stands to benefit from this, please reconsider. Based off what I've heard, people are looking to protect the interest of their own college rather than bring the entire student body together. This is a losing strategy for students and a political game where too much stands to be lost if we, the student body, lose. Yes, I am a business major, and yes, this petition that we created has mostly been passed around the business school. I know for a fact that Anthony, who couldn't be here today, he's the creator of the other petition, has received support from different colleges and faculties within arts and sciences. I come before you today not as a business major, but as a student who cares about the success of all on this campus. And isn't that what we're all here for? I'm here for the students, and today you all have the opportunity to show that you're here for the exact same reason. Thank you.
Thank you
Point
so
of
much for
privilege.
sharing
Sorry, point of privilege.
Have to go to a health appointment.
Well, Simon, would you mind if I had a question? You mentioned that you've either seen on this body or heard examples of or shared concerns about the bias, and also about the concerns of our own individual schools. Could you remind me of an example where this body brought that to the floor? Because
So the bias I mentioned was to do with the Wall Street Journal, because I heard the argument that the Wall Street Journal was a right-leaning newspaper.
And you heard that in here?
Yes, I have heard that comment made by senators before. Not in here, but from word of mouth. And
And what?
I wasn't at the
Last night,
forum last night.
senators mentioned that as a reason to not vote for it.
We've reached our allotted time for this discussion, but please feel free to make a motion if you so choose. But also remember, it's 1:36 and we still have to vote on the actual reallocation.
Rhonda?
I move to extend the time by 5 minutes. Second.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to add an additional 5 minutes to this specific discussion. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes.
If I may respond to your question a little bit more, I think that it's very obvious that there is pitting against different colleges going on here. That argument has been made apparent through word of mouth to me, and I think that bringing up the issue of basically the claims I make against the different colleges going at each other is moving away from the substance of this issue, which is benefiting the student body as a whole.
Thank you. Maya?
So I would like to say that that's a little bit of a radical argument that nationalism has equated to pitting the colleges against each other, and I don't think that that has necessarily happened to the majority of this body. There might be individuals who feel that way, but I don't think as a whole that's an argument that can be said for everyone. And aside from that, I personally feel as though there are other things that the money can be used for that are right in front of our faces. We have the food pantry that students on a regular basis use, and it needs more money, and it needs to be expanded, and it needs to have more inclusion for different diets. And we have heard last night at the forum that there are many students who struggle with food insecurity. And there are many initiatives that can be done about that. And I think personally, and I've also had a lot of constituents come to me, not like you guys or anything, but that food is a necessity. And we have just had this presentation. I know it doesn't have the graphs or the pictures that you want, but there are resources at our disposal wherein you can read on a daily basis what happens in the real world in multiple languages, so that's also more inclusive. And it just seems to me as though this discussion has lasted for a very long time and has overshadowed true issues that the student body has had. No, and it's because what are the updates we have gotten about the hate crime? We have not gotten any updates about if anybody has been found, if the investigation is still open, if anything is happening besides the ad hoc committees and such. And that worries me, because there are people on campus who feel unsafe because they don't know who will come after them next. Again, food insecurity. We have these food recovery programs that haven't updated us for weeks. There are people on EBT. I'm on EBT, and I have access to the food pantry, but sometimes it doesn't have what I need. And I know that other people have the same problems. And I understand that this is something that's very important to you, and I very much respect that. And I think that we can come to a consensus that maybe there's a partial funding that can happen, because there are things that can be done with this money that will really address true needs, like basic needs. But I respect everything you guys are saying, and I hope we can keep this civil.
First, I do want to acknowledge, I do think that's really important, the food pantry, but I also want to clarify that the money that isn't used from the college leadership program will go to the academic committee to use to do academic stuff. No? Okay, so we can use
Point
it
of
for
order.
the food.
My constituent was just given the right to speak through that motion, so I think he has the right to respond.
Actually, he used up his 3 minutes.
Wasn't the time extended to 5?
That's for that discussion. For your discussion.
Okay, so I'm getting this, I get to speak?
Microphone, please.
I motion to give another 3 minutes to my constituent to speak.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to add another 3 minutes for his constituent to speak. Is there any further discussion?
Personally, I think that it is 1:41, and we only have, we also have to go to the voting of the approval of the Finance Committee reallocations overview. And I think that this discussion can continue on after we hear what ASG has decided to reallocate, and then we can have a discussion then, and then also vote on it. So I think this discussion can continue, but that's my opinion.
And that's Finance Committee, not ASGBC.
Sorry.
Any further discussion? Daniela?
I just have a comment. Does it have to do with the vote? Or the time extension?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
For what?
Okay, put your placards down. The motion is to extend Simon's constituents' time to speak another 3 minutes. All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye. All those opposed? Please keep them high. And any abstentions? Motion fails.
We've reached our allotted time for this discussion.
We are going to continue this conversation with the Finance Committee presentations after we get through some logistical votes. So don't think that we will leave the conversation at that. The next item on the agenda is the Finance Committee reallocations overview.
Okay, so we got 3 things to talk about. First off, as you've seen, my situation is not ideal here, so Finance Committee addressed that, and it comes out to $732.82 for microphones at Senate, and we brought it here on the condition that the microphones will move with Senate during the whole construction process that will be going on at USD for the next couple months, years, however long it takes, but the mics do stay with Senate. Do you guys have any questions?
Carolina?
What do you mean the mics stay with Senate? Why does construction affect that? What? Can you just clarify what you meant?
Yeah, so Senate will not be here, under construction.
Oh. I didn't know that. When? We're moving?
Catalina, just don't speak out of turn. And then.
So essentially, under construction, it just means that the microphones will go wherever Senate is held. If Senate is as opposed to just staying in Solomon Hall.
I think what he's saying is that Senate has typically taken place here in Solomon Hall. There will be reconstructions in the Founders and Camino halls, and so if I'm correct, the music department will be moving into Solomon Hall to take up this space. And so traditionally, we're not gonna have this space to use next year. And so we're just keeping in mind that wherever Senate will be located, these mics will continue to be used by Senate.
Thank you.
Den?
Sorry.
Kind of just to respond to Catalina as well. With the microphones, it would involve installing an actual AV system in this room. So that's why it was put under the condition that if we can move the microphones or that system with Senate, then ASG, those funds will be allocated if that system can be portable with Senate and not just stay within this specific room.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions regarding the microphones?
And you all have to approve this, correct?
Yeah, you guys have to make a motion to approve this, or not approve it, or partially approve it. Just need a motion. Okay.
I move to approve the 732.82 for the microphones.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor having been seconded to approve the funding of the mics. Is there any further discussion?
I had a quick question. This is coming from someone who did theater, so it's just a suggestion. For the mics, could that include like headsets? Or is this just like handheld mics? And if so, how many?
It was, I believe, 2 microphones and the AV system. That's what we were quoted here. So that's what the 73282 is specifically for.
Is it possible to like have more in like the set? Like headsets?
That would be something else. That's not what's being voted on, personally.
Any other questions or concerns about mics? Again, Finance Committee we met and we decided to approve this request only if we are able to kind of know if the mics will be moving with us. So as you can see, there are like $200 for the installation, and so we don't want them to just stay in Solomon Hall. We wanted to approve them if they're moving with the body. So, and also there's still a motion on the floor.
So just to clarify, if we approve this 73282 for the microphones, but the condition can't be met, then the money will not be allocated?
Yes.
If that's what you guys vote on, yeah.
All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes.
Just because it wasn't like said there, I do want to remind you that these votes do have to be approved on a 2/3 basis. It goes for the following. The next one is the Women Commons is requesting a reallocation of their own funds. They put forward 865 of extra funds that they didn't use and are requesting 650, 450 for their Women of Impact and 200 for the Women of Color Summit, which is this.
Angela?
I motion to approve the reallocation of the Women's Commons budget.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor having been seconded to approve the reallocation of the Women's Commons, sorry. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes.
Cool. Our last one is Senate voted to bring here the funding the Wall Street Journal in full meant $13,000. And this is for digital subscriptions. And I do want to point out that technically it's not a reallocation because the funds were never like taken from anybody. They've just been sitting around. So if you guys want to continue your discussion on this or any of that, please direct your questions at Carolina.
Thank you. Inaya? I just have a quick question. If this vote weren't to pass, what would happen to the 13,000?
So technically the funds would go back into the pool of where all the funds are. And given we're so close, it would probably go into the pool until we need to reallocate funds or to allocate funds for the spring semester. I don't imagine Finance Committee has enough time to meet outside of that to reallocate funds specifically to this, given it was already a 3.5-hour meeting.
Daniela?
I would just like to say that In response to something mentioned earlier, I agree and totally support everything mentioned about funding the food pantry and everything else, but I also just want to specifically say that this $13,000 is intended for academic use and academic purposes. We also have excess funding that is available to fund these other really important initiatives as well, but I would just like to point out that this $13,000 is specifically for academic purposes. And as academic chair, I would just like to say I think it is critical to fund the Wall Street Journal. I think the Wall Street Journal gives insight into what is happening, contemporary events, and as an engineer, I think it is essential to know about what's going on in the world around us to engineer solutions. So I think it benefits not only the business school, the engineers, College of Arts and Sciences, and I think as a student body, as student government, our job and our mission is to represent our students and our constituents. There are petitions going around. There's 2 petitions. One that has about 230, another that has about 110. And I would just like to say that our mission is to support these students and what they're asking for. And I think it is critical to the success of our academic institution. We're a liberal arts education. I think funding this newspaper gives good insight into what is going on in the contemporary world around us. And as a student government, I think it is essential to listen to our students and what they're asking for. So I would just like to point that out.
Thank you, Daniela. Just for clarification, some of that information is not completely accurate. The funds don't necessarily have to go towards the academics, for like academics purposes specifically. I think maybe you're just thinking of that because the VP does handle a lot of academic space issues and kind of funds. But also, in addition to your debate, kind of argument, if I may, if it's used for academic purposes, Copley, if not, is the best way to access that for academic purposes. What I continue to hear is that this is a lack of personal use and kind of like accessibility and luxury. So I just wanted to point that out. I am taking stack, and so Maya Ramirez was next.
She can respond to that too, also.
Well, before anyone responds, we ran out of time, so you can make a motion to respond.
I move to add 10 minutes to the.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor having been seconded to add 10 minutes to the discussion. My apologies. Any further discussion? And if I could also use this time to ask you all to not speak out of order, that would be great, including the public. All right, all those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Maya?
I would like to say, oh, hello. Okay. At Finance Committee, I did move to approve this, so I know y'all might have been a little peeved at me for what I said, but I do want everyone here to have the opportunity to speak about this because I've had a lot of senators tell me that they are upset that they haven't been able to talk about this until today. And although I may have my own opinion, I may have other constituents who are not in favor of this, I am here to be a part of the Senate, and I do want everyone to have their own say. And I will say that if it passes, it passes. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. I don't know about other people, but I will say I think that the students could benefit more from this money going to other places.
Fantasy?
For the 13,000, do we know, I trust you, George, do we know that that money will fully pay for like everyone's subscription? Do we know if like the price went up, or do we know like how many people it can pay for? I guess I just never got that answer.
So historically, it's cost about between $12,000 to $12,500. But I would like to mention that that was under our contract that did expire. So we would have to go into a new contract with them, and we're going off the assumption of the previous pricing that we were used to. I can't 100% tell you that that's what it'll cost, but we're operating under that assumption for now.
Fantasy, did you have anything else? Okay. Val? No? Okay. I had Marion.
So I just want to want to make a quick comment about something that happened at Finance Committee, very general terms. I apologize if this is, anyway. I want to make a note that while we did technically vote to fund the Wall Street Journal in full, that vote happened after 3 hours of being in that room, discussing this over and over again, and us feeling like we couldn't leave that without a decision that had that was more than just the vote didn't go through. Personally, I felt like there was a lot of pressure for people to vote certain ways to get this here, to be able to have a response from us, which I recognize it's important. It's been 3 months since this has started, and I recognize the importance of that. But I want you all to know that. Also, the part of the reason why this vote ended up coming here is because we wanted to hear from Senate as a whole, rather than just Finance Committee. So just because this did end up getting voted to be funded in full on Finance Committee, a large part of that reason was because we wanted to hear senators' positions and perspectives on this, not because the entire Finance Committee as a whole agreed that that's what should happen. So I want to clarify that because I think it's important to note when it comes to discussing this.
Thank you. I had Andrew next on staff.
I just wanted to back up the point made earlier about being more relevant issues to the overall well-being and safety of students here at USD. As was mentioned too earlier, we are a change maker campus, and I think part of being a change maker campus means making progress in issues such as tolerance, accessibility, and food insecurity. That definition does not include continuing to cater to convenience items such as not needing to type in extra password for a newspaper. I think we need to focus on the issues that actually matter. We've only been devoting a month to this. I think we can move on and focus on the hate crime, focus on accessibility and food insecurity. Thank you.
Angelo?
So I just want to say that for academic reasons, Colleague Library offers the best resource for that, if that point is the point for supporting it. And for the signatures of students, we have 5,919 undergraduates, so 340 is like 5% of that population, so I don't know if it's necessarily a need that is supported by most of the undergraduate body.
Thank you. No? Sorry. Justin.
So I would like to use this time to sort of address the Senate body directly. The decision to vote the Wall Street Journal in full was made by the Finance Committee, and now it is up to us. And it has come to my attention that there are members of the newly elected Senate who feel that due to their being a first year, or due to them being new to ASG, they feel that certain issues may have nothing to do with them, or that things are out of their hands, or that they shouldn't speak up. In fact, when I was researching about this topic in Frank Lounge, I came across a fellow senator who I spoke to about this, and this person said, oh, that's a first, or oh, I'm a first year, that has nothing to do with me, I don't want anything to do with that. And this is an incredibly toxic way of thinking, and it's imperative that we become engaged with what's relevant to the students around us. And it's also come to my attention that in regards to this vote, members may not be specifically familiar with the timeline of events or facts of the college leadership program. The nonverbal communication is there. It's clear as day that whenever this gets brought up, people don't want to talk about it. But I just want to say that before you approve, oppose, or abstain in this vote, just look at the facts. The facts that there's an uproar for this initiative since the idea of defunding it has come up. The fact that there's even a petition just speaks volumes. And yes, while undergraduates, that's just maybe 5% on that metric, this petition isn't
just undergrads. It's to everyone at USD. It's including faculty, it's including people of all different majors. And it's important that both students and professors utilize this news source, and the fact that this is something that is essential for every member of USD, not just the School of Business. And that's something being informed is imperative to being a change maker campus. And that is my stance on it.
Thank you. Maya?
Oh, yes. I would like to introduce a different perspective. Given that the student activity fee is paid by all students, I believe that in order to reach a broader range and a larger part of the student body, the college readership program should provide digital access to a general interest paper like the New York Times rather than a business-centric paper such as the Wall Street Journal. And that is all to say why I'm in opposition to fund the Wall Street Journal allocation.
George?
I'm gonna answer quite a bit of you right now. So you, Maya, right now you said you prefer the New York Times. I would like to say that the original initiative did not specify whether it was the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. It was this current finance committee, we voted on the Wall Street Journal. For financial perspective, we paid roughly the same amount for both. So if you guys were to choose to fund one of them, if you guys were to instead reject the Wall Street Journal, you can use the same data to instead choose to fund the New York Times. It was in the original initiative. Secondly, Maya, I recognize that you are saying that the money could go to other things, and I would like to mention that there is funds for next semester, that these initiatives can be requested for next semester as well. It's not exclusive that these funds be used for this or for one single initiative. Someone can request funds next semester for food insecurity, which we heard last night. That was a big issue on campus that I think a lot of us don't hear on our day-to-day. There's also the lift codes and general hygienic things, medical needs that people put forward, that someone can start an initiative to request funding for, but it does not necessarily have to be one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game here. But we do have a budget. We can't go into that budget.
Since it's direct response, Maya, you wanted to?
My only thing is that students need food now. Jessica in the back had said that last night, and they're frustrated. That's just if we can have an emergency finance meeting, I saw the bylaws, we can do an emergency finance, we can say, let's allot this much money to go to the food pantry, because we already know how much the food pantry needs right now. So, that's all I think.
Okay, Danny?
Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to refer to Justin. I know you made a point about the petition and how a lot of professors and even other students are on board with this, which is really nice to see that other communities here at USD are getting involved with this. But I would like to remind everyone here that these funds are given for you all to vote on, and also your position is to represent undergraduate students. As public relations, I've gotten a lot of emails from professors, also letting us know what their concerns are. And yes, we should also listen to them, but everyone in this room, your job is to represent undergraduate students only, not professors, not graduate students. That's all.
Thank you. Holly?
Personal point of order.
Oh.
I have to go for me.
Okay. Holly? Oh.
We do share a lot of time for this discussion, and I'd just like to make note that it's 2:06 and class starts at 2:30, and we still have to vote on this, so while we can make a motion to extend time, just note that the vote is for.
Val? I move to extend the discussion to 2:10.
So 3 minutes.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to extend the time an additional 3 minutes. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
May I ask George a question?
This has to be about the vote on the table to extend the time. Any further discussion? Grayson?
I do want to inform the body that because this is a longer discussion. And so I do want to inform the body that you have the option to table this discussion to next week where we can give this proper time.
Any further discussion? Mary Logan?
Yeah, kind of going off of that, I just want to say, like, I feel like this keeps being pushed back and it keeps being like, it's just not the center of attention. And so it's like, I feel like this is the first time we've actually been able to discuss it. So if this is something that you're still confused about and you still feel like we don't have questions to the answers that we have, or like, I said that wrong, but like the LIFT initiative, I want to know about like different funds, like where it could go. I still have questions about that, and I know we have class, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to table it. I feel like there's definitely like enough discussion about this to the point where I don't think it would be a bad idea. I don't think that this should be rushed. I really don't. So just consider that.
Is there any further discussion about the motion on the floor to extend the time to 3 minutes? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, I have Holly next on stack. I wanted to remind you all that maybe to move the conversation going, if something has already been said, maybe just don't repeat anything that has already been said.
Okay, I was basically going to say what was just said, so I won't repeat that. But also, I just wanted to say that it was brought up that only a certain amount of students are subscribed. And I just want to keep in mind that my whole entire freshman year, I had no idea about the college leadership program. And so I know there's definitely students out there who don't even know what it is. And I think that's important to address within ASG, that maybe it's our responsibility more to make sure that students are aware of what we are doing and initiatives that we have.
Tony was next on stack.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what's the possibility of other departments or colleges to fund this initiative based on the fact that professors and other administration use it as well?
Yep. So we actually have, people on executive board have met with other departments, including deans, like multiple deans.
I have like information regarding that, like
Oh, go ahead.
as of today. So the one dean that we've been speaking to requested information, so we've reached out to the Wall Street Journal to get that information, and due to privacy, like obviously like we all sign privacy, like check the box, whatever. Due to that, they cannot provide us with the information. So, but the Wall Street Journal did like ask to be referred to either the dean we've been speaking to or other departments to see if maybe they can provide it to them, but that's where we are right now.
Okay, so like there is a possibility that a different college could fund it as of right now?
It's possible.
Okay.
And just to add more clarity, this was something that Finance Committee discussed heavily. We just did not want to make any motions to approve it without actually having like a tangible kind of like saying that they would provide that money, you know? But we did discuss the like partially funding the program. Crystal, you were next on staff.
Another initiative that I've heard a lot from my constituents that affects literally every every student on campus is free printing. I've been here, this is my 4th year, and when the college reach program was being funded, there were still students who were wildly misinformed and obviously not reading the news. So I'm wondering, like, if we fund it again, what can we prove that something is going to change about it, or that people are actually going to read it? It was mentioned last night, even by a student who was in support of the college reach program, that it already wasn't being used when it was convenient, which kind of like ruined his whole argument to begin with. So yeah, if it wasn't being used, to Holly's point, maybe it is a publicity issue to get students more informed. I personally wouldn't mind funding it if we could get some help also from other departments. And yeah, the convenience issue.
We've used our lot of time for this discussion. I would also like to remind you that we still have yet to reach final business, and there's people here, so I'm presuming they'd like to speak. And it's 2:13 classes in like 15 minutes.
Fantasy?
I move to table this decision until next week's meeting.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to table this allocation, the discussion and allocation of the college readership program.
Can I clarify something right there?
George?
Sorry.
Does it?
It's not
Does it have to do with the vote?
It has to do with, like, it's not an allocation, like the money's allocated or it's not reallocated. This was a discussion to move forward with spending. The allocation hasn't happened. Like the allocation, it was never reallocated is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Just use the one that's correct, I guess. Just allocate.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to table this discussion on how to allocate this money. Hadn't been seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. And any abstentions? Motion passes. Please come prepared next week to discuss this. Again, we have heard a lot of different positions on this, so I would really encourage you all to bring either new initiatives, new points, new perspectives to the table to help further our discussion, because I think we continue to hear the same narratives throughout the meetings, and that, along with not allocating enough time, is what is keeping us from progressing as a body, if I may say so. Next item on the agenda is final business and hearing of the public. At this time, any senator may take from the table any motion previously laid in the meeting the week before or present urgent business. Any member of the public may voice any concerns to the assembly on non-agenda items.
I move to rescind the minutes from October 31st. These were incomplete. During the meeting, my computer did die during Eleanor's speech, and it was my intent to go back and add that in, so I apologize for not doing that. I did go back and watch the video and add in that new information, so I think we will send that out to you and vote on it next week.
Make a second?
Yes.
Second.
Just as a clarification, this is nuance in Robert's rules where you can rescind a motion or an act made by this body in a previous meeting. It requires a 2/3 majority vote. And so what this would do is, after we approve those minutes, it would take away that approval so they're no longer official. And then after we send out the proposed amendments that Michaela fixes, then we'll re-vote next meeting to actually vote on the amend them and then to approve those amendments. So you would to get your minutes in probably email every Tuesday. You would just get 2 sets of minutes this time. So
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to rescind the minutes from our Senate meeting on October 31st. Haven't been seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your placards and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Yashvi?
Sorry, this is a little off topic, but I'm gonna make this really quick. In regards to the student org mixer, I do have the flyers and I'm gonna pass them out. And I'd really appreciate if everybody could take one and like put it up in their residence halls, or like if you're part of like the business program, like in Olin or Shiley, or yeah. So yeah, it's next Tuesday and I'd love to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mariam?
Just a quick note that I think would be important. I know you all just voted to table the discussion of the Wall Street Journal digital subscription to next week. Next week is Women of Impact, so I know there'll be some senators and people who will not be here who might want to be here for this discussion. So I would encourage you to maybe think about that and the way in which to proceed, because I know there's a lot of people here who would want to be here for that discussion who unfortunately will be at the event.
Juan?
Hello, hi, thank you. Am I allowed, just a quick question, am I allowed to ask about the subcommittee that you mentioned about, like dealing with hate crimes and future prejudices? To Danny, I was just wondering, like, if there are any updates on like the situation at all, if anyone had been found, if any actions have been actually taken. That's all I wanted to ask about.
So just
You're asking about the subcommittee for the hate crime?
Right.
Okay, so, yeah.
Like if, not the subcommittee, sorry, the group that was formed outside of the subcommittee that you previously mentioned, so I apologize.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question.
It's okay. I'll take that one.
So from having met with that group, I did want to let you all know, I don't know what the full status of the case is. I think it's still under investigation, but due to poor mismanagement of evidence, there has been a halt in being able to get certain information because of the way that things were treated immediately after the hate crime was reported. And so there is, unfortunately, Eleanor's case is currently at a standstill in terms of what to go on from here because of mismanagement.
George. Point of personal privilege, I have class. Taken well.
Point of privilege, I also have class.
Okay, it has to go one by one. Also, point of order, quorum is 2/3, so 20 people.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
No, you still have 5 minutes. Okay, sorry, where's the mic?
There can't be a motion yet to adjourn the meeting just because we do still have time for final business and hearing of the public. Angelo, I believe you had something to say, or you were on Slack. If you have okay, we'll start with.
Point of privilege, I have to go to class. Point of privilege, I have to go to class.
Taken well.
Point of privilege, I have class.
Taken well.
Point of privilege, I have class as well.
Taken well.
You still have quorum.
Did you go ahead?
So I just feel that we've had a lot of time to discuss the college readership. We've all had time to reach out to our constituents, and we all should have been able to take the time and assess if this is a need that we think students, or this is something that students need. After the presentation today, we've seen that if without funding it, we're not changing anything as it pertains to their academics and their access to information. So I feel that to continue focusing and all of our focusing attention on this issue just kind of sets a standard of what is important to us as a Senate body and what we are prioritizing. So I just wanted to let everyone know that.
Thank you. Justin?
Just super quick, I don't take up any more time. Is it on?
Yes.
I just want to ask the senators and the public to be cautious of what they're saying inside conversations and the level of it, because it does get very distracting. And sometimes, you know, the camera is recording and we can hear everything. So just a little side note.
Thank you.
Mary Logan?
In response to Angelo, the reason why this is so important because this is what students want right now. And I'm just trying to hear the student body out. And I think that we have a job as ASG to do so and take it seriously, and it shouldn't be lightly. And I just encourage senators to really get in your research about the topic, whether or not this is like really interesting to you, because I am a poli-sci major myself, so I'm very, I'm inclined in the newspapers, so there's another person, I'm not a business major, and I would like to be informed on news like other senators, and I encourage people who, you know, think the way that like, I don't want to get involved or I shouldn't be involved. You're here for a reason. Your voice is literally being heard, and you're also representing other people who aren't in this room, who can't be in this room. So just don't take it lightly, and just understand and do your research on the college readership program, and come in knowing that you have questions that you want answered, because clearly we have not been able to discuss this enough, in my opinion, up until this point. And there's questions I still have for exec that I feel like haven't been communicated with this new ASG Senate, and I just don't want anyone to feel like they're being taken advantage of. So.
Just,
Jessica?
All right, okay, okay, so I've heard and listened to all these points made. I would like to say that I'm a fourth year here, never heard of the readership program, not once. This is my first time hearing about it. But with that being said, that does not mean that the program is important to some students. I'm not invalidating that you all feel that way and that there are other students on this campus who feel that way. But with that being said, as you all mentioned last night, is that you're frustrated and this is your passion, but that doesn't mean that that money needs to necessarily come from our student fees. You said that you've reached out to deans and other departments. It seems like you took that as defeat, and so that's why you're coming into spaces like this, pushing that. So if you also said last night that you were looking for your senators and for other people to support you in that, to go talk to deans. Jesse also mentioned that there are students like me. I am not on Senate. I am a regular student that walks around this campus, that advocates for students like myself and other students like you. So if that takes for you to pull one of us and say, hey, let's go talk to President Harris. Let's go talk to a dean together and really push that to get funding, not from our student activity fees, but from other departments. USC loves to be in the pockets of our donors, of our alumni. Maybe there's a business alumni or from any other department that's like, actually, I took that readership program really seriously and I would hate for it to just disappear. And maybe they're like, you know what, let me allocate my donations to USD to that program. But we don't know that unless we reach out to those departments. And I would like you all to take that into consideration and that this discussion is being tabled, and think about that. What are the other solutions to this? Because there are other solutions. It doesn't mean that it stops here and that's it. There are other solutions, and I would like you to think about that. Think about how we as students, as allies, can support that. Not just thinking that this $13,000 that could be allocated to food insecurity. If we're talking about academics, how about getting books for students who cannot afford them? Putting books in reserves in the library, stuff like that. That money could be going towards. I would just like you all to think about that in this next couple of weeks.
Just so y'all know, we have reached our end of final business and hearing of the public. If you feel as though there are still public members who need to be listened to, I would encourage you all to make a motion.
One privilege, our voice.
Go ahead. Jimmy? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
No, I appreciate that. That was great.